It was on a calm, clear night about 3 months ago, he said, that we were sailing off the coast of England. The Kitty was loaded with goods bound for the southern ports, and we were running the blockade. Roland Bayard was my first mate, as you know, and a finer sailor never trod a deck. We were making good time, and all seemed well, but just as the moon rose, we spotted a ship on the horizon. At first, we thought it might be a British patrol, but as it drew closer, we realized it was the Argentine, the most feared pirate ship on the seas. Before we could change course, the Argentine was upon us. They fired a warning shot across our bow, and we knew we were outgunned. Roland urged me to fight, but I knew it would be suicide. The Argentine's crew boarded us, and within minutes they had taken control of the Kitty. Silver, the pirate captain, is a devil in human form. He has a silver hook for a hand and a heart as cold as ice. He ordered his men to loot the ship and take whatever they wanted. When he saw Roland, he seemed intrigued. A fine young man, he said, strong and brave. He'll make a good addition to my crew. Roland refused, he told Silver he would never serve a pirate. Silver just laughed and said, "We'll see about that." He had Roland bound and taken aboard the Argentine. As for me, Silver said I was too old and stubborn to be of any use. He set me adrift in a small boat with just enough provisions to reach the English coast. I was picked up by a fishing boat and made my way to Liverpool. From there, I arranged passage back to America. But Roland is still with the pirates. I don't know what they've done to him, but I fear the worst. Rosemary's face was pale and her hands trembled. "Oh, Uncle Gideon," she whispered, "we must save him. We must." Mr. Force placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We will do everything we can, Rosemary, but it won't be easy. The Argentine is a dangerous ship, and Silver is a cunning foe." The Earl of Enderby, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Perhaps I can be of assistance. I have connections in the British Navy. If the Argentine is as notorious as you say, they may already be hunting her. I can send word to have her tracked and intercepted." "That would be a great help," said Mr. Force. "But we must act quickly. Every day Roland spends with those pirates is a day too long." The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The sound of the ship's engines and the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull filled the air. Rosemary looked out over the vast expanse of ocean, her heart heavy with worry. "Roland," she whispered, "wherever you are, stay strong. We're coming for you." A glimmer of hope. The days passed slowly as the Asia made its way across the Atlantic. The passengers tried to occupy themselves with books, games, and conversation, but the shadow of Roland's captivity hung over them like a dark cloud. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the Earl of Enderby approached Rosemary. She was sitting alone on the deck, staring out at the sea. "May I join you?" he asked gently. Rosemary nodded, and the Earl sat down beside her. "You're thinking of Roland, aren't you?" "Yes," she replied softly. "I can't stop thinking about him. What if he's hurt? What if he's—" She couldn't bring herself to say the word. The Earl placed a comforting hand on hers. "Don't lose hope, Rosemary. Roland is strong and resourceful. If anyone can survive among those pirates, it's him, and we're doing everything we can to find him." Rosemary looked up at the Earl, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Lord Enderby. You've been so kind to us. I don't know what we would do without you." The Earl smiled. "It's my pleasure, and please call me Francis. We're friends, aren't we?" Rosemary nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Yes, Francis, we're friends." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Rosemary felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they would find Roland and bring him home. But little did they know, their journey was about to take a dramatic turn. A storm at sea the next morning. The sky was overcast and the sea grew restless. The captain of the Asia announced that a storm was brewing and advised all passengers to stay below deck. But Rosemary, unable to sit still, ventured out onto the deck. The wind whipped through her hair and the first drops of rain stung her face. She clung to the railing, staring out at the churning waves. Suddenly, she spotted something. In the distance, a ship struggling against the storm. It was smaller than the Asia, and it looked as though it was in trouble. "Francis," she called, running to find the Earl. "There's a ship out there. I think it's in distress." The Earl hurried to her side and peered through his binoculars. "You're right," he said. "It looks like they're taking on water. We must alert the captain." Together, they rushed to the bridge and informed the captain of the situation. The captain immediately ordered the crew to change course and head toward the stricken vessel. As the Asia drew closer, they could see the ship more clearly. It was a small merchant vessel, its sails torn and its hull battered by the storm. The crew was frantically trying to keep the ship afloat, but it was clear they were losing the battle. The captain of the Asia ordered lifeboats to be lowered, and the crew began the dangerous task of rescuing the stranded sailors. Rosemary watched anxiously as the lifeboats made their way to the sinking ship. Among the rescued sailors, she noticed a familiar face, a young man with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Roland. She cried, her heart leaping with joy, but as the lifeboat drew closer, her joy turned to confusion. The young man looked like Roland, but there was something different about him. His expression was cold and hard, and his eyes held a glint of something she couldn't quite place. When the lifeboat reached the Asia, the young man stepped onto the deck. Rosemary rushed forward, but the Earl held her back. "Wait," he said softly. "Something's not right." The young man looked around, his gaze settling on Rosemary. For a moment, his expression softened, and he seemed to recognize her. But then his eyes hardened again, and he turned away. "Who are you?" the captain of the Asia demanded. The young man hesitated, then said, "My name is Roland Bayard. I was a prisoner on that ship." Rosemary's heart sank. This wasn't the Roland she knew. Something had changed him. As the storm raged on, the passengers of the Asia gathered in the dining saloon, where the rescued sailors were given food and warm clothing. Rosemary sat with her family, her eyes never leaving Roland. The Earl leaned over and whispered, "We'll get to the bottom of this, Rosemary. Whatever has happened to Roland, we'll help him." Rosemary nodded, but her heart was heavy. She had found Roland, but he was not the same, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over, to be continued.